Chimera are most commonly known as the terrifying Greek monster that has the head of a lion, body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent. Oh, and it breathes fire. While finding a chimera in the image of the Greek legends would be great, the word chimera has been repurposed to talk about a single organism that contains two different genomes. In this video, we will cover 3 different types of chimera present today: the anglerfish, some humans, and man-bear pigs. Man-pigs? Human pigs? Anyways, the anglerfish. Becoming a chimera is part of the natural life cycle of the anglerfish. The life of an anglerfish is as follows. They are born, either male or female. The female grow into those terrifying anglerfish everyone knows, making their most famous appearance in Finding Nemo. The males, on the other hand, are kind of sad little things that are significantly smaller than their female counterparts and don't have that dangly light. Eventually, a male finds a female and the mating process begins. The most romantic way possible, the male bites the female, refuses to let go, injects a toxin into its mouth, and the toxin dissolves the male anglerfish's mouth and the female anglerfish's abdomen. They're then fused together into one organism. It really is an act of true love. The male lives off of the female's blood supply, and in return the male fertilizes the female. This process is known as sexual parasitism and is not something I would recommend emulating. The main thing to note about this weird duo anglerfish is that it is a chimera. It contains 2 distinct genomes in different parts of the body. The male and the female part are now living as one organism. Now, you may have heard of Lyda Fairchild. She was a woman who broke up with her boyfriend, whom she had 2 children with, and was pregnant with a 3rd. When she went to court to claim child support, a paternity test was issued. The children did come back as their father's children, but according to the DNA, she was not the mother. This threw a bit of a wrench in her life, but more tests to extended family were issued, and the DNA testing of Lyda's mother made it apparent she was in fact the grandmother of her children. So unless some really bizarre series of events happened where Lyda was the surrogate mother for her unbeknownst to her bastard sister, there was something else going on. This something, as you may have guessed, was that Lyda was a human chimera. When Lyda was being developed in her mother's womb, there were not 1, but 2 fertilized eggs. Instead of producing fraternal twins, the eggs were fused and formed different parts of her body. One of the eggs formed everything above the cervix, and the other formed the cervix and below. This meant that when she produced a child, it was really the bottom half of her body that passed on her genetics. So when her DNA from a cheek swab was taken and used for a maternity test, it did not match. The upper half of her body would have been the sister to the part of her body that produced the offspring. Eventually, some smart people figured this out with a cervical smear test, and it did confirm that she was indeed the mother of her children, and she did get the child support. Another weird case of human chimera is people that are fused with their fraternal twin of the opposite sex. When it comes to determining sex, you kind of just look down and either there is a penis or vagina, but in the case of some chimera, it's a... This is what happened to one boy, girl, well, mostly boy, that externally had a working penis, but apparently also had half of a uterus attached to a fallopian tube. He did have an operation to have these removed, but this kind of thing does blur the lines between male and female. New studies have shown that it's probably fairly common to be a chimera. Not in the same way that Lyda was, but in a more subtle way. Perhaps it's a birthmark or something else that is mostly undetectable and in no way affects your daily life. But the odds of being a chimera could be much higher than originally thought, especially if you are the product of in vitro fertilization. So far, we have talked about anglerfish being chimera with other anglerfish and humans being chimera with other humans, but no cross-species chimera like our iconic lion, goat, serpent. But there are cross-species chimera. This is where we get to talk about the human pig. As a side note, I feel inclined to mention that trees that are grafted onto each other are chimera of different species, but they are nowhere near as exciting as a human pig. Before we dive too far into this, I would also like to give a public service announcement. Do not Google image search human pig. It's scarring. Anyways, the human pig. In a lab, a pig embryo was modified. Human stem cells were manually inserted onto the growing pig embryo. The results of this study showed that the human cells were able to survive and replicate symbiotically with the pig cells. Full disclosure, of all of the embryos that were tested, none of them survived more than 28 days, but either way, a human-pig chimera was briefly in existence. With more research in this area, it may be possible to make a full-fledged human-pig chimera. Now this elicits the question of, why? How was a study to make a human pig even funded? Well, for a long time it was not, at least not in the United States. This was primarily because of the ethical issues surrounding embryo manipulation and making an interspecies hybrid. But the purpose of making a human pig chimera is to address a growing problem. lack of organs. Everyone is born with the organs that they need, but we humans are clumsy or unlucky, and something bad can happen to our organs. As a result, we sometimes need them to be replaced. Well, this is a problem because it's not like there are a bank of organs just sitting around in case you had 1,000 beers too many and now need a new liver. But there can be. The goal of the human pig chimera study is to be able to successfully grow a pig that will have various human organs in it that can be used for humans, like a heart or lung or whatever else. The goal is to make it so that humans will have enough organs to replace as necessary and make the price of organs drop so that getting organs necessary for survival are accessible for everyone. The advancement in chimera research may one day solve the organ shortage issue that we have, since we don't get a spare when we're born. Now to summarize. Some species in nature naturally and intentionally are chimera, like the anglerfish. Some chimera are kind of a reproductive abnormality, like humans, and some are created in vitro, like the human pig. The study of chimera helps us learn a lot about embryonic development and may one day solve some of the problems the world faces. And of course, the end goal of creating a fire-breathing lion-goat serpent from Greek mythology may someday be achieved.